Okay, so you want to own a septic service company. Buy a truck, park it in your driveway, drive to a house, lift the lid, pump the tank, collect the check. Every house with a septic system has to get this done every few years, whether the owner wants to or not. The ground underneath the yard can't flush into the city sewer. The tank fills up. The tank has to be emptied. And you're the one standing there with the hose. The guy down the street who owns the company seems to have it made. Truck in the driveway. Work that shows up on its own. Customers who call back every few years without being chased. Sounds like the closest thing contracting has to a guaranteed annuity. It is not entirely wrong, but the story of how this business actually makes money and how it actually dies has an interesting part that starts after the tank is full. The first half of the job is what the customer pays for. The second half is the part nobody pictures. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what you're actually buying when you buy one of these companies. Because it's not the truck, and it's not the customers either. The truck is the vehicle, the customers are the reason you get out of bed, the business lives somewhere else. Before we talk about money, we need to talk about what a septic company actually is. Because one name covers a handful of businesses that don't have much in common except the truck. There's the residential pump out, the job most people picture. You go to a house, you open the tank, you pump it, you close it, you leave. There's the commercial work, the restaurant grease traps, and the big institutional tanks, which pay better per visit and come with their own headaches. There's the inspection, where you don't pump anything at all. You open the lid and tell a homebuyer what's buried down there. And there's installation and repair, where you tear up a yard, replace a drain field, and hand the homeowner a bill the size of a used car. These are not the same business. They share a truck and a logo, and almost nothing else financially. And the reason that matters is that the economics depend entirely on which one of these you're actually running. So what do you actually own when you buy one of these companies? Here's the part that surprises people. The tanks belong to the homeowners. The pipes belong to the homeowners. The drain fields buried under their backyards belong to the homeowners. You own 4 things instead. The truck, which is the entire factory. The license that lets you open the lid at all. The list of names who'll call you back in a few years. And the route, the shape of all those customers on a map. That's the whole company. A licensed privilege, a depreciating machine, a list of names, and a pattern of dots. Now let's talk about the truck, because the truck is the whole game in a way that surprises people. This is not a van with a hose in the back. This is a vacuum truck, purpose-built industrial machinery, with a giant tank, a high-capacity pump, and the plumbing to move waste in and out of it. A basic new one runs somewhere in the ballpark of $80,000 to $150,000. The bigger combination units that can also jet out clogged lines run well past $200,000. Used ones are cheaper. But used means maintenance, and maintenance means downtime, and downtime is the one thing this business cannot afford. Because the truck isn't just a delivery van, it's the factory, it's the warehouse, it's the employee that never calls in sick. When that truck sits in the shop, the company sits in the shop with it. Every single dollar this business earns has to pass through that one machine. So let's price a single job. A residential pump-out runs a customer somewhere around $300 to $600, with the most common price landing in the middle. On a good day, the technician is on site for about an hour, 45 minutes to 90, depending on the tank, the lid, and the weather. And this is where the fantasy starts to crack. The customer isn't paying you for the hour at the house. They're paying for the hour you spent driving to the house. The fuel to get there, the truck payment that never stops, the insurance on a vehicle that costs as much as a small house, and the fee you're about to pay on the other end. Run the math, and the all-in cost of performing a job like this, before you pay yourself a single dollar, lands somewhere around $85 to $160. So on a typical ticket, you're left with somewhere around $200 to $260 of contribution. That's the money that has to cover your overhead, your own pay, and your profit. It sounds decent. It is decent. It is also completely dependent on one thing nobody budgets for. And before we get to that thing, it's worth understanding the demand itself. Because the demand is the reason anyone gets into this business in the first place, and it's more complicated than it looks. The need is guaranteed. Every septic system fills up eventually, and a full tank doesn't negotiate. But the need is also invisible. Nobody thinks about their septic system. There's no display, no light, no dashboard warning. The tank sits under the yard doing its job for years at a time, and the homeowner's only real relationship with it is the moment it stops working. So the demand is real, it's recurring, and it's completely forgettable all at the same time. That combination is the whole marketing problem of this industry. You can't make someone care about a tank they can't see, so the company's real challenge isn't convincing people they need the service. It's making sure that when the tank finally fills up, the name they remember is yours. Now that thing nobody budgets for. The moment the tank is empty, the customer is happy, and the check is in your hand, the job is only half done, because the truck is full. And a full truck is a problem. You can't pull into a ditch and drain it. You can't dump it on a vacant lot. In most places that's a serious violation, and the rules are set at the state and county level, so they vary from one place to the next. The load has to go to an approved receiving facility, a wastewater treatment plant that accepts septage, a dedicated septage station, somewhere with a permit to take what you've got, and that facility charges you for the privilege. Tipping fees alone run somewhere around 15 to 20% of the ticket, and that's before you count the drive, because the facility isn't necessarily close. It can be 20 minutes away, it can be an hour away, and every mile you drive with a full truck is a mile you're not driving toward the next paying job. Here's the trap that catches almost every new owner off guard. The first half of the job, the part the customer pays for, is the part you were ready for. The second half, the part where you stand in line at a treatment plant and watch a fee eat your margin, is the part nobody budgets for. So the question becomes, how does anyone make money in a business where every single job ends with a full truck and a drive to somewhere you'd rather not go? That question matters more than it looks, because a full schedule is not the same thing as a profitable schedule. The average job is hiding jobs that quietly lose money. The tank with the buried lid that costs you an extra hour of digging. The tank that hasn't been touched in a decade, where the solids have compacted into something that fights your hose the whole way. The call from 40 minutes outside your service area, the one you take anyway because the calendar looked light, and it eats a full afternoon for less than half a normal ticket's contribution. Run jobs like that back to back, and you can work 12 hours, look at a schedule that was completely full, and still finish the day wondering where the money went. A busy day is not a profitable day. Revenue is not profitable. And that's the distinction the whole industry runs on, the one that's hardest to see from the outside, because from the outside every full schedule looks like success. The owners who don't understand it are the ones who work the hardest and keep the least. Let me show you what that actually looks like, because it's the day that decides this business more than any spreadsheet. Say it's a Tuesday in October. The owner is out of bed before sunrise. Coffee, keys, truck. First job of the morning is a standard pump out in a neighborhood he's worked for years. The tank is where it should be. The lid comes off clean. The pump does its work. 50 minutes, invoice handed over, solid contribution on that one. Second job is 10 minutes down the road, also clean. By 11 o'clock the morning looks like the dream. 2 jobs done, full afternoon ahead. Then the phone rings, and it's the call that changes the shape of the day. The address is on the edge of the map, 40 minutes out, and the voice on the other end says the tank is full. He tells himself it's fine. Every call matters. A full calendar is a full calendar. That's what he tells himself. And it's the call that costs him the afternoon. The lid is buried under 2 feet of dirt and a flower bed that has to come up first. The woman at the door is apologetic. She didn't know the lid was buried. Nobody told her to mark it. That's the thing about this business. Nobody knows where their own tank is until it's too late. The tank is worse than she said. An hour in, the hose is fighting a mass of compacted solids that hasn't been touched in a decade. When it's finally done, the afternoon is gone and the truck is completely full. The line at the facility is 4 trucks long, and the facility closes at 5. He waits. The tipping fee comes out of the job he just spent the whole afternoon on. The drive home is an hour in the dark. When he finally pulls into the driveway, the yard is dark and the day is just gone, and the only thing left of that third job is the memory of standing in a flower bed with a shovel, digging for a lid that should have been marked and wasn't. Add it up, and the 2 clean jobs from the morning barely carried the day, and the third job, the one that looked like money on the schedule, actually lost money by the time it was over. That's a full day. That's a full calendar. And that's why the owners who win this business aren't the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who never have a day like that in the first place. And the day is only one layer of the problem, because the year has its own version of the same pattern. The demand for the work is steady, but the work itself is seasonal. In the winter the ground freezes and the lids freeze shut, and some weeks the truck barely moves. In the spring the ground goes soft, the trucks sink, and the same neighborhoods that were frozen solid are suddenly too wet to reach. The calendar that looks packed in July, every square filled, can sit nearly empty in February, and the bills don't care which one it is. The money arrives in bursts, the bills don't. The truck payment shows up every month whether the ground is frozen or not, and the owners who don't carry enough cushion through the good months are the ones who end up selling the truck first. It's not just the drive that decides this business, it's the whole year. So what does a smarter version of that Tuesday look like? Here's the same day run by someone who's figured it out. First job is at 8 o'clock, 10 minutes from the yard. Second job is 2 doors down the same street. By noon they've done 3 jobs, and the truck is only half full. The afternoon is 3 more houses in the same subdivision, and the facility is on the way home. 15 minutes, no line at 2 o'clock. 7 jobs, same truck, same hours. Nearly double the contribution. That's not luck, that's the whole business. This is where the winners separate themselves, and it changes how you see everything else. The profitable companies aren't the ones with the most trucks or the most jobs. They're the ones with the densest routes. A truck can reasonably run somewhere between 4 and 8 jobs in a day, depending on how far apart they are. If those 4 jobs are scattered across 3 counties, you spend the day driving and the margins get thin. If 8 jobs are clustered in the same few neighborhoods, the drive between them shrinks to nothing, and the truck, the insurance, the loan, and the technician's day are already paid for. Every extra clustered job is almost pure margin on top of a day that was already going to happen. The winners don't chase jobs, they pack them. They build the calendar so the drive becomes a rounding error and the disposal facility sits on the way home. And once you see the route, you start to see the whole real business. Because the most profitable work isn't the pumping at all, it's the inspection. When a house is being sold, the buyer wants to know what's in the ground before they sign. So the septic company comes out, opens the lid, checks the tank, writes up a report. That takes about 90 minutes. No disposal cost because nothing gets pumped, no hauling, because the truck barely moves, and a typical inspection runs around $350. An hour and a half, no fee, no mileage, no tank of waste to unload. The boring pump out is the foot in the door. The inspection is where the margin hides. And sometimes the inspection finds the real prize, the failed drain field, the repair work that runs into the thousands of dollars, and comes with real warranty risk, which is exactly why the smart companies treat the easy pump as the price of entry to the work that actually pays. The same logic extends everywhere you look. The grease trap at the restaurant down the street has to be pumped on a schedule whether the kitchen is busy or not, and that account renews itself. The maintenance agreement is the closest thing this industry has to a subscription. A homeowner pays a small amount every year just to stay on the list, and when the tank finally fills up, the call goes to you before it goes to anyone else. The company with a folder full of recurring accounts and a map full of clustered dots is a completely different animal from the company chasing calls one at a time. And the disposal facility, the thing that looked like a curse, becomes the thing you plan the day around. You learn what it charges, when it's busy, when to show up, and how to route the afternoon so the truck empties on the way home. It's still a constraint, but it's the constraint the whole calendar is built around, and that's exactly what the winners do with it. So if the schedule is the business, why does growth break so many of these companies? Because adding trucks adds overhead before it adds efficiency. This is the scale trap, and it's exactly backwards from what most people assume. One owner-operator in a single truck, doing the pumping themselves, can net somewhere around 25 to 35% of revenue, because there's no second paycheck, they're just working harder. Add a second truck and suddenly you need a second technician, more insurance, more maintenance, and more time just keeping both vehicles busy. Margins compress. A small fleet runs more like 18 to 25%, a mid-size fleet, 12 to 20%, and the big operations with a yard full of trucks and a management layer on top, the good ones run down around 10 to 16%. Every truck you add brings new costs before it brings new efficiency. The company that grows by buying vehicles instead of packing routes just multiplies the overhead and divides the attention. And there's one more dependency that can quietly end a company, and it's the easiest one to miss when things look healthy. Customer concentration. A septic company that lands one big contract, a housing developer, a property manager with 1,000 units, can look incredible for years. That one client can be a third of the revenue, half, sometimes more. Then the contract comes up for renewal, and one morning the client goes with someone else, or brings the work in-house, and a third of the revenue is gone in a single signature. The truck is still in the yard, the route is still on the map, but the schedule that was full last week has holes in it now, and the foundation just moved. The winners understand this. They build 1,000 small relationships instead of one big one, because 1,000 small relationships can't all leave on the same Tuesday. So, does owning a septic service company actually work as a business? The honest answer is yes, but it depends on which company you're actually running, and the gap between the good outcome and the bad outcome is enormous. In the good version, you own a dense route in a service area with a disposal facility close by, recurring accounts that renew themselves, an inspection line that carries almost no disposal cost, and pricing that charges more for the jobs that cost more. In that version, the margins are real. A well-run company nets somewhere around 18%, and the best operators run closer to 30%, with a schedule that repeats every month and customers who call you back every few years without being chased. That's the version that builds wealth, and it's the version that can be handed to someone else. In the bad version, you own a truck, a license, and a pile of scattered calls. Every job is a surprise. Every tank hides a problem you didn't price for. The facility is far enough that the drive home eats the last job of the day. You buy a second truck to fix the volume problem, and the volume problem was never the problem. Neither version is exotic. Both of them happen constantly, sometimes to owners who started in the same town in the same year. The industry doesn't decide which one you get. The route decides, the calendar decides, the pricing decides. So if you do decide to buy one of these companies, understand what you're actually buying. Not a truck, not a pile of jobs, a recurring schedule, a dense route, a list of names, who'll call you back when their tanks fill up again, and a working relationship with the place that takes what you remove. The pump is what you do, the schedule is what you own, and the drive between the tank and the dump is where the money is made or lost. But the deepest part is this: the tank fills back up every few years whether you're there or not. The waste comes back, the need comes back, and the only thing that decides whether the check comes back with it is whether you were the name they remembered when the lid came off. The truck isn't really the business. The space you hold in their heads when the tank fills back up is.